morning.
Good morning.
I just would like a little bit of your time to discuss my capstone that I had to do for Gardner-Well for my graduation. And the title is Analyzing the Effects of Literature Circles on Reading Comprehension. And the idea from my research came from Mr. Harris, recommended that we take the PD on literature circles. And I know that reading comprehension is a concern for our school, so I thought, why not use it? Even though it was my very first time, I've never done it before. I decided to do it anyway. In chapter 1, I just introduced the problem, and I found 2 studies that went along with what I was trying to say. And Presley, they stated that a percentage of students have difficulty with reading comprehension in 4th grade and beyond remains high, even though there's a recent emphasis on comprehension research and teaching. And as I stated earlier, since that is our focus here, is to increase literacy, I thought that this would be a great strategy to use. So the purpose of my research was to determine the impact on literature circles, whether it be positive or negative, on reading comprehension. And my research question was, what are the effects of literature circles on reading comprehension? Chapter 2 was my problem and the literature review. I chose the most important quotes from my literature review because it's extremely long, but that good reading strategies are as adaptable as they are intentional, and good strategy instruction is as adaptable as it is intentional. So they're pretty much the same. Your reading strategies and your strategy instruction are both equally as important, and they both need to be purposeful, intentional, and intentional, and they have to be adaptable and flexible to fit each student, because we don't have one size fit all. Literature circles are vehicles for nurturing personal and critical responses to text. Often, from the very first year to this year, I watch my students read, and after they're done, they don't know what's going on. So that let me know that they need to interact with their text a whole lot more, which is what I try to teach them. Literature circles promotes accountability for one's learning, social skills, problem solving, and collaboration. So the engagement. Engagement is always a problem when you do not have technology. When you have technology, everybody's on board. So the collaboration part of literature circles, I thought, would get them at least talking about the text, because they can talk to their friends, and my students love to talk. Being accountable for their learning, they had to turn in their road sheets. They had to come to their literature circles prepared, or they wouldn't have anything to add, which would, of course, affect their grade. Chapter 3, the outcomes and procedures. I used my first block, 17 students. They all have mixed abilities. I do have one identified AIG and a few struggling students that are not reading at grade level. The instruments I use to measure the effectiveness are benchmarks, the CFAs, star reading. I also use reading interest surveys to see what genres they like to read, so I can kind of choose the ones that within the lexile that fit those. I taught before literature circles, we use the Basel, I do, we do, you do approach. Their grouping, I did group them based on their star. They did not have a choice in who they were grouped with. I chose it for them based on their lexile. But I did allow them to choose their novel from the list. My data analysis show that, and I do use EDUC and Pearson a lot, that effective reading comprehension requires different kinds and amounts of instruction and experience for different learners. We do know that with differentiation. I try to use different things in my classroom that would appeal to everyone at one given point in time. Comprehension is a context in which students learn to use comprehension strategies in a variety of settings, and multiple levels and types of text are used. And my schedule included 5 days a week, 85 minutes. I completely gave it to them. I gave it to them, and I did it for 3 weeks. I did, however, have small groups, my lower ones, based on the data from their benchmarks and CFAs. But other than that, they were on their own. And I have a little video. It's short.
Okay, I'll start. So roll the eyes to Sarah's connector. Okay, I can connect the relationship of Darcy and Elizabeth to the relationship of Emily and George in our town because they both actually get to know each other before they fall in love. I love that. Thanks. Okay, next I can connect the way that Lydia acts to the stereotypical teenage girl who's silly and has fallen in love. Lastly, I can connect the father-daughter relationship that Elizabeth and Mr. Benedict have to the relationship of me and my dad. They're alike because my dad values education and wants me to be really smart and learn things, just like Mr. Benedict with Elizabeth.
Oh, that's sweet. I'll go next. I did the illustrator. I drew a picture of Darcy and Elizabeth during their fights. This is important because while they fought, they fell in love.
I like that. How many fights did they have? Well, I'm not counting the proposal, 3 or 4, depending on what you consider a fight.
My turn to go. I did questionnaire. The first question was, will Darcy get shunned by his family for being in love with Elizabeth? My answer was that they would have to deal with it because Georgia liked Elizabeth.
What about his aunt?
I guess you just have to be civil to them.
Good point.
Thanks. Okay, my second question was, will Lydia be invited to spend time at Pemberley? My answer was a flat-out no, because Lydia is a disgraced member of the family.
My prediction was that Kitty will get a respectable husband too. Well, I guess I'm the only one left, so I'll go next. I did the word wizard. I'll share 2 of my words. One was dowry. That means the money paid to the husband along with the marriage. Second, the word was estate. Estate means the manor house and the gardens and wood around them. Nicely done. Those are really important words to the plot, so it's good to know them. Okay, so guess we're done. Let's go read. Read to the last page today. Yeah, we're at the end.
I think you see it. Thank you. So before I get into my results, if you paid attention to the video, it was a little struggle getting my students to have, how can I say, about their discussion. They did really well, but I had a few that went off task a little bit, just a little bit. But for the most part, I think they did a really good job. According to my results, 47% of students made gains on their CFA reading assessments, and 67% made gains on their benchmark assessments. 73 made gains on their STAR reading test, but also I had 6 students who kind of went back on their CFAs, and I did have some insufficient data due to students coming in without, in the middle of the year, transferring. I had a few that were out for illnesses, and so that kind of affected some of my data. And I also had 5 students that decreased their reading benchmark assessments and 4 that decreased in their STAR reading tests. So I had both positive and negative gains. My conclusions. Like I said, each student had different degrees of success from the study. I did have other health impairments that I think affected my data. I had some students that have ADHD, bipolar disorder, and leukemia. All those things, of course, obviously could affect any type of study. Based on the data from the study, I feel like literature circles has a positive effect on reading comprehension. But for my future research and recommendations, which is the part that I focused on a lot because I plan on using this again next year, and fingers crossed to present it to the school as something we can do school-wide. The differentiation part, obviously, I want to keep because I allowed students to make their own choices. It was the text, the novels, they were accessible because they were based on their lexicals. The modeling and the processing, for that, I feel like I need to do that a lot more because some students got it right away, but some needed a little more time. So I'm gonna have to model the process until they're able to do it on their own. My rules and expectations, I think, were very clear from the beginning. We went through it. Again, I'm still gonna make sure I do it a lot longer before I ask them to do it on their own. The amount of time that they were allowed to work is gonna be decreased as well. My thinking for next year is to offer it as a station or a menu option after I'm done teaching. That way I've already modeled it, they know what to do, they can go off into their groups and I can still be able to work with my small group without having to worry about are they gonna be able to do it on their own. I think this strategy is best used after most of the standards have been taught. And again, like I said earlier, I did sit with my lower groups every single day, every day. After they worked with me, that was their entrance into their literature circles. They could not go until they had worked with me. And that I will continue because I think that worked. And I'm gonna go to some more professional development I have already signed up for with CSI and Tech Fest on 21st Century Literature Circles. And hopefully I can get the technology piece so they can be technology based next year for my kids. Mr. Harris? Do you have any questions? I do have video of my students, but because I had to submit this to Gardner Webb, I could not add them because you can see their faces. But I do have several videos if you want to see them whenever I can show you. Yes?
Did they read in class or did you send their book home and tell them you had to read before coming to class?
Yes. So I did, they decided. They had to break it up. So they did have reading at night. They had to do a journal. They had to bring that in. It was a part of their grade, and they had to read in class. They had to do them both. So I don't know if I would change that part. I might just allow them to do the reading all in class. I haven't figured that part out yet. But yes, they did have to have some accountability on their own, and I did not hound them because at the end of it, they had to turn in everything. They had a rubric, and I let them know what I was grading.
So the rubric was the teach them at the beginning.
Yes.
And every activity.
Yes, they had a sheet, and I have a document for that. It's a list that I got from Ms. Davis. Everything they need to do was expected every day.